Joining us on the phone is my good friend Brian Darling from the Heritage Foundation. Brian is the Director of Senate Relations at the Heritage Foundation. He's worked in the Senate for Mel Martinez, Bob Smith, and even did a little stint with my old boss, Paul Coverdale. Brian, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Now, the other day, you broke a story on Human Events that was then picked up by the CNS News Service about Harry Reid trying to slip this health care plan through a back door. Could you explain that to folks?
Yeah, I'll do my best. It's a very complicated procedure, but the bottom line is that Harry Reid and other leaders in the Senate are trying to pull a fast one on the American people. What they're trying to do is use a very seldom used parliamentary procedure to get legislation through the Senate very quickly, potentially get it over to the House and get it to the president's desk. Now, we remember what happened during the August recess. The American people got a hold of the House bill. The House plan, it was over 1,000 pages long of legislation. They read it. They didn't like it. They went to town hall meetings, yelled at members of Congress. Well, the Senate learned a lesson from that. And what they did is they avoided the problem because they don't have a bill. There's a bill that passed the Senate Help Committee. There's the bill that's being debated right now, not even really a bill, but it's a description of a bill in the Senate Finance Committee that we're going to be talking about the score. But Harry Reid, in the end, is going to take that, merge it together on his own, and roll out a totally different piece of legislation that nobody's seen yet. So what they're doing in the Senate is they're using a non-transparent process. They're not allowing the American people to participate. So we don't really know what's even going to be in the bill in the final estimate.
Wait. I thought the Democrats were bastions of transparency. You can see through them like cellophane.
Well, actually, you can, just not the way you want, Eric.
Do you remember when President Obama promised that he was going to put legislation on his website for 5 days so the American people could review it? We have a situation in the Senate where the Senate's ready to transform 1/6 of the American economy, healthcare, without the American people being allowed to participate. Many in Congress appear to believe that the American people's participation begins and ends when they vote. They're not allowed to call their members of Congress, meet their members of Congress, or complain about it because they're not allowed to see the bill.
Well, you know, you're not supposed to say things like that, Brian. That's being disrespectful to the august body of the United States Senate. I swear to God in heaven we should start putting Barack Obama's promises on the back of milk cartons, including this transparency one. Now, let me ask you this, though. You've got the situation now in the Senate where they're trying to ram this through. You and others and several folks, including yourself, have posted at Red State on this issue, calling it the vapor bill. I don't think people understand that the Senate can write a description of legislation of what they want in it without actually writing the legislation. And then all of a sudden, someone else, once they've got the description approved, they write the legislation and people never see it.
Right, and they don't want the American people to understand what's going on. They want to make it complicated so they can't participate. But the bottom line is what's going on in the Senate Finance Committee, all the talk about the score, it doesn't matter. Harry Reid's going to write whatever he wants into the bill. He's not constrained by the scope of what the House, what was passed in the Help Committee, what was passed in another committee. He can do whatever he wants. He can put whatever he wants in that bill, and he's doing it in the Capitol with representatives of the Obama administration, and there's no transparency at all. We're not allowed to see what they're doing. I think the American people should be outraged by this.
They should be outraged, and God bless you for bringing up this point. Stephen Hayes brought it up on Fox last night, and I was so upset, to even see people on Fox, who I thought maybe should know a little bit better, jumping up and down saying what great news this was for Democrats. I mean, the only good news this is for Democrats is that the fact that we're all buying this hook, line, and sinker. For goodness sake, it's not even officially a score because there isn't even, and you have to have actual legislative language to score it. In other words, folks, what it means is in order for you to do, 1 + 1 is 2, you have to know what the 1 and the 1 is. They cannot choose the 1 and the 1 in this addition problem because they don't know what it's going to mean yet. And all of it's irrelevant for all the reasons that you just said, Brian. And it's so frustrating to see all of this energy, all this sort of fake motion for nothing. Because at the end of the day, they're going to, and of course you're seeing that, even Kent Conrad, these are prominent Democrats who have not been quote unquote on board with what Obama wanted. They're being shunned from these meetings. Well, Harry Reid's not even letting these guys in, in his meetings for this ultimate bill.
That's absolutely correct. And only in Washington, D.C. could a bill cost $829 billion, and somehow they can say that there are going to be savings as a result of the bill because they're balancing that deficit with massive new tax increases. I mean, they're going to increase taxes through the roof. There are all these planned cuts, which we need to see the cuts actually go into effect before I actually believe it. I mean, when President Obama stood before Congress and said, oh, there's all this waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare and Medicaid, well, why aren't you cutting it now then? Why are you promising to cut it in the future? So we really can't trust many of the promises coming out of Washington because they won't even let us see the bill.
But, that's okay because the taxes are going to be on the rich and on the soldiers who have lost limbs in Afghanistan and on the mothers who need to breastfeed their kids. The rest of us, we're okay.
Well, I mean, I honestly, as a conservative, it just boggles my mind that we can have people in Washington credibly say, hey, we're going to radically increase government, we're going to take over 1/6 of the American economy, and we're going to pay for it by massively increasing taxes on you people, and somehow we're going to have stimulus. I mean, that's going to somehow stimulate the economy and save money. It's just not reality.
Well,
it's not fact.
Your point is that they can't credibly say it, and Peter Orszag cannot credibly say it, as the gentleman leading the Office of Management and Budget. He can't say that. Here's my question. We're hearing that some of the Republicans are feeling pressure. They're feeling this momentum that the Democrats they think they have right now. What are you hearing about what the ultimate vote's going to be on whatever this is that they come up with?
Well, we've seen former Majority Leader Bill Frist talk about that he believes that the Baucus bill is the least worst bill coming up, and he's leaning supportive of it. You're seeing other former Majority Leaders saying the same thing, and you hear the Democrats yelling about the party of no and saying that Republicans are blocking everything. I mean, I think it's not a bad position to be in to be saying that, but I just don't understand why anybody would be snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory. I mean, this approach, this Obamacare approach, is worse than the status quo.
Well, Brian, thanks very much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.